Thank you all for joining us today. This is the Soft Landing Pad panel, where we're going to be talking about welcoming international early-stage startups to the U.S. in a systemic fashion. And want to appreciate you all taking the time to join us to learn more. Give another minute or so, as it looks like people may still be trickling in. Nope, looks like they're standing there and potentially blocking our door. Oh, okay. So I'm Craig Montori. I'm the Director of Entrepreneur in Residence Partnerships at Generator. I have spent the past 15 years working in first the startup visa space as a lobbyist, ran a nonprofit, implementing a startup visa within existing law, and I'm here today as an economic development professional working within ecosystems to shift the focus from the founders, who are critical, and as we all know, ecosystems are founder-led, to the companies themselves, and to work with city and state partners to roll out the red carpet. We talk about how the classic example of the immigrant founder is arriving on an airplane with a backpack by themselves and building that future here. What would it be like if they were welcomed with a red carpet and an outstretched hand? What does this mean for your communities and ecosystems about building tax bases and really building the future in cities and states in America's heartland? So I'm pleased to introduce our panel, and I'm going to be just introducing them by name and giving them a minute or so to introduce themselves, and the next we'll do is to talk about why each of us are here. So, Shayna?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shayna Hetzel. I use she, her pronouns. I'm based in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm the Vice President of Entrepreneurship and Innovation with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. My team is accountable for three key things. One is our venture capital program. So we run a fund of funds. We run a venture debt program that's both direct to founders and indirect through other lenders. And we run an investor tax credit program. We also run all of our startup ecosystem programs and partnerships across the state of Wisconsin. And then finally, we do sector development and corporate innovation partnership work across the state. My background is a great blend that I think positions me to really be innovative in this role. I have a background in launching a venture capital fund that was a social impact startup fund for a Fortune 250 in Wisconsin. I have a background in philanthropy that invested in grassroots organizations across the United States focused on systemic change. And I also have a background in public policy rooted in community building for the University of Wisconsin-Madison and in the state budget office. And so this role at WEDC allows me to stay connected into community, to invest in our best and brightest in Wisconsin, and also take the policy lens of how to remove barriers and set up our systems to really help people succeed. I'm really happy to be here.
Okay, thank you, Shayna. And I'm pleased to welcome Jacqueline Diaz from PacSafe onto the panel. Jacqueline?
Thank you, Craig. My name is Jacqueline Diaz, and I'm with PacSafe. Now, by a raise of hands, how many of you have received a shipment where it came either super late, later than when you actually needed it, or it came damaged? Anyone? Right. It's like super common, right? And so imagine this with cold chain. So temperature-sensitive products like pharmaceuticals or produce that need to be in a very specific temperature range or have a certain humidity level throughout their journey. Well, we help those manufacturers of pharmaceutical companies or produce, oil and gas, reduce product loss and improve operational inefficiency, as well as essentially optimize their transportation network. So we support not just the manufacturers, but also the logistics service providers that really have the responsibility of shipping these goods to their destination. I am actually a marketer with PackSafe. I am not a founder, co-founder. They were unfortunately not able to be here. My background is really interesting. It's not in this, and so originally I was in the Marine Corps after high school, and afterwards, after doing 5 years, I got my master's in social work. And as you can imagine, during COVID, how difficult in general social work is, and it was just really draining, and I needed a change. And I had friends that are in the entrepreneurship and startup world, and I wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of startups, and here I am now doing this, and I absolutely love it.
Great, thank you. Jose Carlos, or Charlie.
Thank you, Craig. How are you? My name is Jose Carlos. Everybody calls me Charlie. I'm an extreme athlete, book author, and also an entrepreneur. I'm building my 5th startup, my first one in US, my first one in sports tech. And I describe myself on a passionate and an adventure human being with the soul of a warrior. So very excited to join panel with you and to share with you how I came to US. As you said, like a red carpet. Today I'm the carpet because I'm in red. So, but very happy to be here.
Great, thank you, everyone. Now, I want to just go down the line again and say, why are we here? What is our story as relates to soft landing pads? So for myself, this is, as I mentioned, been my passion for 15 years. And so with where I am at Generator, it's an opportunity not just to welcome entrepreneurs and their companies to our city partners across the U.S. and in working with our state partners, but it's to welcome the companies and have them go through our Generator Accelerator program. So we're going to be helping them become investor ready in the communities they're being welcomed to. Our local serving locals ethos says growth and innovation happens in America's heartland, not just in these coastal hubs that startups are known to be at. And we want to make sure that a company that lands in a city has the right fit, and that they're prepared to fall in love, and that they're prepared to put roots down, not just in a year, not just in a handful of years, but that we want to win their American headquarters and potentially and compete for their global headquarters beyond that with that. Why I got involved was my company in 2010 was not going anywhere. One of my friends in the startup meetup space, he had raised a bit of money, he had a product he was selling, and all of a sudden he disappears. His 6-month business tourist visa expired. He couldn't get it renewed, he had to return home to Latvia. Since then, I said, this is going to be a 6-month project. I'm going to get this bill through Congress and move on with my life. And that was in 2011. Did not work out as I initially thought. But I'm really proud to have joined Generator as they've embraced this vision on how we can welcome international startups and solve the problem on a systemic basis as a best-in-class accelerator offering. And so, Shane, I'd love if you could just introduce Accelerate Wisconsin and how we're thinking about things in working together.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. So I've been with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation for a year. Officially, yesterday was my 1-year anniversary. So I'm still learning the economic development sort of language and world. And what's really fun about being a learner is you get to beg and borrow plays out of everyone else's playbooks. So when I look at our global trade and investment team that runs trade missions across the globe that helps Wisconsin companies open doors, start partnerships, and expand their supply chains, that's interesting. And then you take the team that does business and community development that competes across the United States, right, for those really big deals, like landing Eli Lilly for Wisconsin last year, landing Microsoft's data center, their third in the United States. Those were big deals, right? Those were $3 billion deals. And so they have a whole team that build out attraction packages. So when I looked at my portfolio for entrepreneurship and innovation, we already had some great momentum. We had been designated as an EDA tech hub specifically focused on biohealth and theranostics. As part of the Microsoft data center deal, they are opening a co-innovation lab that's coaching our manufacturing companies in Wisconsin on integrating AI to accelerate their work and their workforce. And you build and take all of these pieces, and I got to ask what's next. And so I think that Accelerate Wisconsin adds this complementary feature to entrepreneurship and innovation that takes advantage of our ecosystem, but also borrows the tried and true plays from our global trade team and our business attraction team. So this is really about startup attraction for Wisconsin. And the reason we want to do this is because, one, it adds density quickly to our ecosystems. We already have these winning pieces, and it injects new energy, more entrepreneurs that have broader ideas and broader perspectives. Second, why global? Well, first of all, it's difficult for Wisconsin to make a case as a state on why you should choose Wisconsin versus Silicon Valley domestically. Second, just on paper, like I'm biased, I choose Wisconsin. But second, it adds vibrancy that we can't get by only local and homegrown startups. That vibrancy includes bringing their own global network of investors, strategic partners, awareness of supply chains that expand access and market awareness, not just for that company that's coming to Wisconsin, but for other Wisconsin companies and startups across the state. It helps me build our global network faster. It gives us a reason to sign memorandums of understanding for collaboration on innovation. We've done 2 already, one with the state of Hessen in Germany and one with Invest Monterrey in Nuevo Leon, Mexico. We've done that as a platform with Accelerate Wisconsin as really the entree and the on-ramp into the Wisconsin economy. So density and vibrancy, and then finally, I think that when they come to Wisconsin and they get this warm Wisconsin welcome, they fall in love with our cheese curds, our Friday fish fries, and our ecosystem, that they're going to choose to stay in Wisconsin, whether that's their global headquarters or their U.S. headquarters. That's going to help our foreign direct investment. It's going to help our research partnerships, and it's just going to continue to build global bridges at a time where state relationships with other global states are incredibly important for our supply chains and for our innovation. That's my long-winded why Accelerate Wisconsin. I am super excited about it, and I can't wait a year from now to share out what we've learned.
Wow, who's ready to move to Wisconsin? That was quite the pitch.
So just to queue up the next question, and then we'll move on to Jacqueline to talk about PackSafe, is I'm going to be really interested to ask and hear your answer on what a global to local pipeline is of these internationally founded companies hiring local American Wisconsin employees, and our vision on transforming the and growing the employment base. But so Jacqueline, the PackSafe has such an interesting story in its journey through America, and how a soft landing pad style program was really key to allowing them to choose to grow in America, to raise money ultimately, and now really hit the pedal on growth. And we've talked about what PackSafe does. I want to talk a little bit about how we got to the successes you've achieved recently and where you're going. So to put on that hat on behalf of the founders, I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about the story and why PackSafe. We were so delighted to have you join us.
Sure. So I actually have known both of the co-founders since before they started PackSafe. And the interesting part about the creation of PackSafe is they originally were selected from Generator to be a part of their program, but they were selected as a completely different company. However, a little bit about halfway through or so, there were some differences between the founder and Ilya Nashuk, who now co-founded PackSafe. And so eventually they decided to split ways, and during Generator, they started PackSafe. And so it was birthed in PackSafe, and what the timing with it was kind of intense for them, because just the following week after this all unfolded was the investor swarm, which is they had to go pitch to about 25 plus different investors with a company that they just started. And as you can imagine, that is very, very challenging to do. And they didn't have all the answers yet, right? And so they had to go in and convince and have really uncomfortable conversations. But they pushed through. And it was great that so many people believed in them. And so during the first about year of PackSafe, within that timeline, one of our co-founders needed help with his visa. A very last minute, like, it's a lottery system. And so we turned to Generator, who is full of resources, connected us with Craig at the time, who was with Global Entrepreneurship and Residency, and was able to put Ashok in Michigan, where he was a mentor for early startups, which is ironic because we were like an early startup with PackSafe, but he had already worked at other startups and exited. So, we were very fortunate in that. They were trying to problem solve and be like, how do we fix this? They were already thinking that Ashok was going to have to do like a skip and a hop over to Canada, or they were trying to get creative. Like, how can we keep our co-founders together? And luckily, this pulled through. And through that process, and then COVID happened. It kind of felt like one thing after another with the early stages of PackSafe. And they made the choice actually to headquarter in Indianapolis for various reasons. As we know, or many of you may know, Indianapolis is the crossroads of America, right? There you can get direct flights in so many different places. You've got Chicago just to drive away, Nashville, Ohio, just in a lot of relationships that we already have in those areas. So that made sense to us, as well as our Ilya Preston, one of our co-founders. He is actually from Indiana, so he had roots. And as you can imagine, during COVID, it was kind of nice to kind of go back to home or be closer to home. And so here we are in Indianapolis. And so Generator provided such a great foundation, resources, investors, connections, that really allowed PackSafe to grow. Now we have, about a year ago, we closed our Series A, and we are now a 35-person team. And we have a new investor that we have is Microsoft, Ubiquity Ventures out of California, Northwestern Mutual, Venture 53, just to name a few of our investors. So we've really grown, and it really is a major thanks to Generator and the resources that they've had, because you're going to hit a lot of challenges. In general, having a startup is extremely difficult, and to have these resources at the tip of your fingers is so helpful. And you build these lasting connections with other people that understand what you're going through. What else? I'm trying to make sure I hit all my points here.
That's the main one.
Yeah.
We're super excited to share that celebration of the Series A. You talked a little bit earlier about the cold logistics that PackSafe has built and is deploying, and what that means for folks like us who want to have packages that don't get damaged. I want to just ground that briefly in. Indianapolis is getting the headquarters. The jobs are distributed all over the country as a remote business, and it's as an economic development strategy. There would have been solutions, but I was delighted to be able to provide that solution on the visa front that allowed them to move forward with the hard work of building a company. And for those of you who are founders, for those of you who are ecosystem builders, we know how many bottlenecks and friction points there are. And when immigration is added to that, it just makes things so much more complex. And you're making decisions that might not be in the best interest of your business or your users because you need to jump through these hoops and make sure you're able to be where your customers are. So PackSafe, I think, is a really great success story. And so, Jacqueline, thank you for joining us in this.
You're welcome.
Jose Carlos, do you want to talk about, why you're here and what your story is?
Well, thank you, Craig. So basically, my story of 3 years in less than 3 minutes. I basically came to Silicon Valley first. I won a grant to incubate what today is Vertical X, and that was my first step into the U.S. I'm Guatemalan Italian, so no U.S. citizenship here for me. And then I was grateful to be selected by an accelerator in Austin. So I went down to Austin, and we became a portfolio company. And in that year, this was back I started in 2021 this journey, and then 2022 I moved to Austin, and I started building the company. And then I was grateful to be recruited by Generator 5G beta program in Indiana. I have never been in Indiana before. I probably never been here if it was not from Generator. But I am very blessed, and I'm very amazed of the people here and the ecosystem. And I think you said properly, Craig. This is the red carpet, because now I'm in the panel, and in those days I wasn't. So this is a great for me. Generator has built my case. I understand how the ecosystem works in US for startups. This is not how it works in Latin America. In Latin America, it's like the jungle. It's very different, and this is more structured. So thanks to Generator, first I understood how it works, the sweat equity, how you get funded, how is structured the companies. So it was very, very good for me to have a structured program that Generator brought to me. And actually, one of the guys that recruit me is here, Davide D'Antonio. He's Italian. I'm Guatemalan Italian as well. So thank you, Davide, for recruiting me here. And so yeah, that's what I came to Generator. And in that process, we're talking about visas and all that. In my case, I've been an athlete for the last 11 years, and I was also very grateful to receive an O1A visa for extraordinary abilities in athletics. My company, Vertical X, is obviously it's involved in sports. We are building a platform to help endurance athletes to fund their sports career based on performance data. So it's a problem that I have faced, and I was one of the 2% out of 100 million endurance athletes all over the world that could be granted or sponsored by more than 14 brands in my career. So I'm putting that on service for the future generations, I always said, for something greater than our inner selves. And in that process, when I got recruited by Generator, it helped me to build my case for immigration before the current president came on board, to build my case for the green card. So I received the news. I think I have the record of having a green card in less than 3 months for extraordinary abilities in athletics. I received it in December 24th. My green card last year, December 24, 2024. I like numerology, by the way, so 24. So basically that's my journey in the States. And I know that for startups, I'm not yet on Series A, but I know I will be there. Not yet, but I will be there. So building this is more than, I've been an ultra trail runner. And I always do an analogy between being an athlete, being an ultra trail runner. Building a startup is harder than running an ultra. So you have ups and downs. And I was telling behind scenes to my colleagues here that the people that has been behind at least Generator and Indiana is what I really care about. I have been receiving help from Indie Chamber that also is here a lot. So Indiana has opened me the doors. I got the opportunity to do a partnership with the Sports Take HQ. Also recently, that I'm very grateful. I hope somebody's here from that entity. But also we got the grant from INTAP, from a program for small and medium enterprises to build our app that Dan Drexler lead and is here as well. So thank you, Dan. And also recently we also been awarded by a grant by Purdue University of the IFI program with 2 interns to do the tech development that I know Patrick is here as well, who leads the program. So Indiana for us, thanks to Generator, I always said that is the journey is not about the money. The money is a mean, but is the resources that and the opportunities that we can find in our journey, and it's infinite possibilities. We just need to do 2 things: to open the heart and have a clear mind to be present in each opportunity.
Thank you. Now, I want to take the remainder of the time on this panel to do a vibe shift. We've been talking about our individual stories that prove the larger whole. For those of you that are ecosystem builders, for those of you that are policymakers or funders, I want to talk brass tacks about the metrics that you can talk to your peers, to your leaders, the folks that are setting the priorities for economic development. So this question I queued up for Shana with Accelerate Wisconsin about what does this mean for local American job seekers? How does supporting these international founders, these international startups, translate into wins for your home regions, whether that's here in the U.S. or it's a global, an international ecosystem builder? Why do you want to help a great company potentially get on a plane to come to the U.S.? And access to capital markets here is really just the beginning. So Shana, my question for you is, what's your vision with Accelerate Wisconsin about how these companies are going to be putting roots down in Wisconsin for the long term and are growing into becoming anchor employers for the future?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. Accelerate Wisconsin is not the first global EIR soft landing program, or probably not even the first in the top 10 of existing as a program. But what we wanted to do with Accelerate Wisconsin is offer a statewide platform and a network. Not just a single university, but our tech colleges, our community and local economic development organizations, our sector-specific advocacy networks, and plug them all into this red carpet welcome, and also providing the on-ramp to sustained growth. And that sustained growth creates jobs for Wisconsinites in those communities. You already heard me talk about the benefits of density and vibrancy, the potential for expanded market access and accessibility across the globe. I would also say what we know, everyone at this conference knows, right? Startups not only contribute the most net new jobs in an economy, but they also provide high-wage technical jobs that are transferable. And so even if that company creates a job for 3 to 5 years, that's new workforce in the state of Wisconsin that can easily blend into our corporate innovation landscape, into our university partners, into our research initiatives, and it just continues to build and expand that in Wisconsin, we are specifically investing in high wage, high growth, high technical jobs, and that can start with a startup, end with a startup, or startup can be your next journey that you haven't envisioned. And so from economic development lenses, right? You look at the long-term job creation, net wage contributions, but I really think that the magic is in the middle, right? It's about the connectivity, the velocity in which your ecosystem moves around a flywheel of growth. I think for my organization, what we're going to look for is first, we're doing a pilot program, 1 year, 4 to 6 communities, 12 to 16 global entrepreneurs to Wisconsin, hopefully on board in the next 6 to 8 months. So we're moving fast. And so we're not looking in that first year for job creation numbers. That's unrealistic, right? What we're looking for is that feedback in the ecosystem, in the university partners, and from the founders. What is the value add? What is the value proposition? And what does the long-term outlook look like for those job creations? Over the long term, of course, what we'll measure is what those wages are. What we know right now is our startups that are certified in our tax program, their wages are 1.7 times higher than the median wage of our state. We know that those kinds of jobs are really critical at a time when everyone, every state, every company is competing for the best and brightest workforce. And so the density of that is going to just increase those numbers, we think, and we think this program is going to be a major contributor to that. By also taking a network effect and a statewide lens, it creates fluidity of falling in love with maybe Beloit, Wisconsin, and also being connected into Madison and Green Bay and Milwaukee and the state that allows a more friction-free pathway across our ecosystems.
Amazing. And Jacqueline, I want to continue the conversation on infrastructure. Knowing that this was a repeatable solution that PacSafe could work with, I'd love to ask you a question about the barriers that were being faced in that moment and how the soft landing pad style program, having access to that as a programmatic solution, made the difference for PacSafe in that critical window.
Absolutely. I mean, quite honestly, I kind of feel like we were at the right place at the right time. Because as I mentioned, PacSafe came in, not as PacSafe, into Generator. And had we not had that resource at that time and had, the Generator, like Joe and Troy, who in charge, not, said, they could have said, hey guys, we're going to move on, right? Because now you don't have a company. But they believed in them and they started something fresh. So that infrastructure and having them there, I mean, we could have, had we not, we may not have Ashok, our other co-founder, or it could have taken us a lot longer to get to where we're at today. So there's that initial visa issue, but because we started that company, right, the barrier was, all right, now we have all of this ground to make up because we just started this company. Well, we had the guidance from the rest of the Generator network to help us do that. So, I mean, quite honestly, I really do feel like it eliminated a lot of our barriers, to be honest. Had we not, it just would have been a lot more challenging had we not had that.
Especially like a line though from our planning process that I'll just throw at you for a response. And you said, without the infrastructure, you would have missed your shot.
Yeah, we could have absolutely lost our shot. Absolutely. And that's why, these programs are important. And, even outside of that, say if you're not, wherever you may be, joining other programs that are, like, for example, we are part of Tech Point here in Indianapolis. They allowed us, they gave us our first interns, and we had 2 interns, one from University of Alabama and one from here in Indianapolis, right? With the hope of, like, we continue to grow here in Indianapolis when it comes to the colleagues. So it turned out we had this intern data scientist who was unbelievable. Ashok and Ilya and Sahil just raved about him and how just intelligent he was and how creative he was and how he could solve problems essentially. And they hired him. He wasn't even done with school yet, and they offered him a position, and he finished part-time. And that was thanks to TechPoint, another program that's available here. So I really recommend how helpful this can be. Where would our platform be had we not had our intern, who is now an amazing colleague?
Thank you. And Jose Carlos, as someone earlier in the life cycle, to our audience, what would you say the key elements of support are for a soft landing pad program for you and for those who are maybe trailing in following your footsteps, maybe 6 to 12 months behind?
Well, in my case, if I understood correctly the question, I have been just a great experience on the onboarding previously, if that's the question. You said 6 to 12 months before?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, so basically, in my case, at least here in Indiana, I have received a very welcoming by International Center. It's very well structured. I remember this story because they did this assessment of myself about my culture, how it will fit my culture in Indiana culture. And obviously, I'm Latino, I'm Italian roots, very young, so imagine that gap that I have in Indiana culture. But it has been nice to see how to understand the culture. Probably that's one of the things that I have been more that I have been learning more about, at least Indiana and U.S. So I don't know if something different. In my case, I have been having each challenge, each opportunity I have taken for good. I always said, I was telling a friend yesterday, in the fear is your power. So when you have fear, you have to listen to that fear because that's where you have to go. It doesn't matter the structure or plan that you can have. It's just make it happen. So that's what I can say. And actually, I know that we are running out of time, but I want to give this book. I'm a book author, but Generator is part of my book. So I'm gonna read what I wrote to you, to Generator team. I'm eternally grateful. You are part of this story. Keep inspiring and supporting rare and unique founders like me. You are light for our journey. With love and respect. So I'm going to give it to you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Craig, can I just jump in for a
Please.
second here? What I love about being on a panel of founders and builders, is it reminds you why you do this work. And we at WEDC could not be more excited to roll this out with a Wisconsin homegrown company, which is Generator. We are so proud to do this work with a proven partner that you've heard from Jacqueline and Jose Carlos on their kind of end-to-end, warm family welcome into a proven accelerator model that has had over 250 cohorts and programs. You'll hear more if you stick around for the next panel. They're a global company headquartered and based out of Wisconsin. And that's our goal, is to really lean into these kind of homegrown assets to add to the vibrancy of the global startup community.
Thank you. And I'll close with a message to our global partners, asking the question of how does this contribute to my own ecosystem if I'm putting a great founder and a great company on a plane to the U.S. We follow an ethos of to do well by doing good. And what we want to see is these founders raising from American investors and then sustaining and creating jobs in both locations, your region of origin as well as your American landing pad. We want, at an extremely early stage, you to be thinking of yourself as a global market leader. And that involves not just being in one place, but reflecting your home, reflecting that culture. And while you're being welcomed, and while we want to win your American headquarters, we want to compete for your global headquarters, we respect where you're from and how where you're from developed into who you are as a founder, what your product is, what your market fit is, and we want to grow together. So our friends at the German American Chamber of Commerce, we invite continuing the conversation, welcoming Hessen startups, hopefully in September. And for those of you who are ecosystem builders and are interested in this framework, happy to talk after the panel before my co-founders and colleagues are up next. But we invite you to think about what it means to systematically and deliberately, with intention, welcome international companies to your ecosystems to help them grow, to help them solve challenges beyond just immigration of what does it mean to sign a lease here for the long term? What does it mean to raise capital, to hire from our colleges and universities? How do we plug you in? And we want to think very holistically. So soft landing pad, meaning here's where we want your home to be. We want it to be a smooth and easy transition. So thank you all for your time. And I invite you to enjoy the transition to our next panel. Thank you to our panelists.